Hi, this is Travis in the Uncanny Valley. I like to benchmark when I finally figure things out, and this has been a couple years in the making, so I definitely want to benchmark this. So today is January 16th, 2023, and I feel like I've kind of known this, but I got a new wording on it, so I actually know it now. Um, I think I figured out my struggle with boundaries. I'm able to have them in a much healthier way now. So I've only uh, known about the idea of boundaries for 1 to 2 years, somewhere in that range. I wish I'd have benchmarked it back then, when I learned about a new word or a new concept, but I didn't. So here we are. But first of all, just a little sidebar about boundaries. Unless, I've just been totally out of the loop. Like, as far as I understand, implementing boundaries in a very intentional and vocal way in your relationships, like that's a pretty new thing as far as I understand. So if you're implementing boundaries, maybe be patient with the fact that most people don't know how to understand boundaries. So they're not going to be able to respect them merely because they know you, or merely because they want to be friends with you and are trying their best, or merely because they love you. Like, a new concept for me has to be incorporated. Like, I really have to digest how to do things. So, um, let's try and be patient with each other. If I learn a new language and just go around and start using French everywhere I go, it doesn't behoove me, and it doesn't show love to just demand that everyone speak my new language. It's a journey, and everyone is on a journey at the same time, and we're not even close to being in the same place on our journeys. Let's not use this to create division. Like, by all means, let's create safer, healthier, more loving relationships, but be patient and use love to get there. So, okay, now I'm off my soapbox. So, the thing I finally learned about my boundaries, or about boundaries, I guess, is that I used to want to say, like, well, stop pushing me, either emotionally or situationally or physically. Like, stop pushing me um, past what I can withstand, what I can endure, or I'm just gonna go off. Like, that was the phrasing I probably would have used. Like, I would have just gone off, or blown up, or whatever. And um, so, as I'm finally understanding what boundaries are, like, I'm learning that, like, oh boy, did I need them. Like, I needed them for sensory issues, I needed them for social issues, and I have my own built-in cognitive boundaries that I'm learning how to navigate around, and how to really, the boundaries I have around that is more how to help um, explain for other people what my innate boundaries are, like things that I'm incapable of doing. I don't need your condemnation, or your grief, or your anger, or your uh, mean reaction. Like, I'm just gonna be a lot more healthy in the knowledge that I have impairments that I don't need to get into in any given situation, just so that I can get decency from you. I have been the reason, I am the reason that I had blow ups and meltdowns and tantrums, or whatever you want to call it, through a fit. Because I didn't know how to have boundaries. But I'll give you an example. So I have some sensory things. So one boundary I would have was, if I'm talking with someone or a group of people in a social setting, and um, someone is just significantly louder than the distance between us would require, or there are a large number of kids around, or I'm at a loud place and it's just overwhelming to me, like, I would get overwhelmed. I would not necessarily link it to being uh, overstimulated, But if it's just one on one and a person is talking way louder than the situation requires, like I said, based on distance, and the way that sound travels, um, I I would ask them to be quiet. Like, hey, like you're you're kind of yelling right now, and that's the polite end of it. But like most of the time, it would be that I would just get overwhelmed from all of the sensory stimulus, and I didn't have even the context. I didn't have any examples of how to have healthy boundaries. So, or if I had seen it, it was something that I was not understanding innately, and it was not explained to me in such a manner that I could process it and then incorporate it into my own life. So, back to the example, instead of just getting overwhelmed by that stuff or just avoiding situations where I knew it was overwhelming and not really figuring out how. Now I have earplugs. I mean, I'll just show you. Like I have earplugs, so uh, I keep these with me. They're little clear silicone earplugs from Walgreens, I think. You tear them into whatever size you need, and yeah, I mean, I'm in situations a lot where uh, there's just either a handful of people, whether it's kids or whatever, and they're being kids or they're adults being adults, speaking at whatever level they're comfortable at. Um, and, maybe it's just one person or maybe it's 500 people. But the point is, one tangible way that I can show that I'm having a healthy boundary is that I've accepted that this is a legitimate boundary. I'm not going to let people tell me that my boundaries are um, not legitimate or that they're ridiculous or mock them. I mean, they can mock them all they want, but I mean, like, that's not going to change where the boundary is or where the boundary needs to be. So, like, I can put earplugs in, I can maintain some level of boundary within myself, within my own autonomy. I decide where my boundaries are. And it's up to me to establish them, notify people as the situation warrants, but then to enforce them. Because if I get pushed past my boundary, it's most likely that it was within my control uh, to avoid that. Now, it's not always. I mean, sometimes I am in situations where I am pushed past my ability to endure the situation, and I was not able to be elsewhere. That is rare, though. That is an outlier. Even then, I'm dealing with it uh, in a much more informed way than I used to because I'm aware that I'm struggling and how I'm struggling, and that I'm just needing to get back into regulation. So, yeah, that's a little situation of how I'm dealing with boundaries. What's an example of a tangible way that you're dealing with a boundary in a much healthier way that you could put in the comment and we could encourage each other? Because if you've listened this far, then you probably have a boundary, and I'd be happy to encourage you. Thanks.